Hi guys, I'm EVM and welcome back to the channel. Now, I want to talk about something which crops up on a daily basis for me anyway, in terms of comments and tweets and things like that. And that is, when cars switch over to electric, what's going to happen to the revenue that the government gets from road tax and fuel duty? Because that does obviously bring a lot of income in for the government, and if people stop buying petrol, which, let's face it, the majority of the petrol cost is tax. If people stop buying that, where's the money going to come from? What's going to happen? A lot of people seem to think that's going to be lamped onto the price of electricity, but I think that is completely and totally wrong. It just won't happen. Right, let me clarify exactly what I meant by it won't happen. I've done many videos over the years and quite a few relating to the cost of the running costs of electric vehicles. It used to be a case of people argued against it, but now with the data that's just out there and the stuff I've proved myself, no one can really argue with the fact that in terms of fuel and maintenance, electric cars are significantly cheaper to run than a petrol equivalent. That, again, as I said, is pretty much it's done. No one's really arguing against that now. But because people, or some people should I say, hate electric vehicles for reasons that they can never quantify, almost like it's an affront to everything they believe in, they have to find fault. And the common question I'm getting now on a daily basis is that as soon as the government starts losing revenue on fuel duty, when people go to electric, then watch the government lamp it, all that tax onto the price of electricity, and watch it skyrocket. Enjoy it while it lasts. Well, as I said before, this won't happen. They will not tax, certainly nowhere near the extent that they are with fuel. They will not tax electricity because it's used for everything by everyone. It would be complete and total political suicide, lamping 20, 30, 40, whatever percentage onto the price of electricity, because it would push people into fuel poverty completely. People that don't even have an electric vehicle would end up paying a fortune for things that aren't related to cars. There would be industry that uses a lot of electricity, hospitals, schools. It would cripple the economy, quite frankly, if they lamped a huge percentage onto the price of electricity. I think people are just thinking, well, fuel for car, they're just going to replace one for the other. And it's not. For that reason alone, it's just not, it's not going to happen. I mean, I suppose what are we actually talking about here? Now, I suppose I can mention car tax. That's an easy one. They will just start taxing electric vehicles very much like they are petrol ones. It will happen when there's enough. We'll probably end up with electric vehicle gas guzzler equivalents. So you'll get efficient electric vehicles that are taxed less than inefficient electric vehicles. A Tesla, for example, will probably get taxed more than a small little Hyundai or something like that. Car tax will be as it is now and as it always has been. They will just start taxing electric vehicles. So that one's easy. That's not really what we're talking about here, I guess. What we're talking about is fuel duty, the stuff that does bring in a lot of money. Now, according to this, in the tax year anyway, 2018 to 19, the government brought in £27.9 billion from fuel duty receipts. Clearly, that's a lot of money, a load of money. And in some ways, you're right. Yes, it has to come from somewhere. They're not just going to accept a steady drop-off, and it would be a steady drop-off. There's not going to be a massive sudden switch to electric. Where they're going to get the money from? I mean, we kind of heard this when they did the public smoking ban. Well, if they ban smoking, where are they going to get all this revenue from? That's not really materialised, has it? This, however, I think is a bit different. They do have to do something about it in terms of if they want to keep the income at a similar level. It's not quite as straightforward as that though, because you are going to get some savings by not having people buying fuel or petrol. I mean, the oil industry, for example, is heavily subsidised, massively in fact. So theoretically, that will be less subsidised and there will be some cost savings there. Not direct ones, and it's hard to quantify, so yeah, I get that. But there will be other savings there that will negate some of this loss. For example, if everything suddenly was electric, car-wise anyway, and everything on the road, in theory, the local air quality will be much better. There will be less health problems. That I can believe. I don't think anyone can argue with that. And it would put less strain on health resources, which will save the government a bit of money. But that's a logical argument, and the government doesn't work in logical ways or terms, does it? But you get my point. There will be a cost saving there by switching from, well, petrol usage to electric usage. How much, I'm not going to debate. That is not what I'm here for. People always think you're an environmentalist if you drive an electric car, and it does my head in. I'm a petrol head. I'm an electric car fan. I like both. You are allowed to like both. I just like cars, basically. So I'm doing this as more of an exercise, I guess, rather than a political statement. So how do I think the government are going to recoup some of these billions? Even if you said, well, there's only going to be 20 billion that we need to recoup, and a good portion of that will be from savings, cost savings. Well, again, it won't be on electricity, because electricity isn't just used for one purpose or one primary purpose, transportation. It's used for everything. I mean, can you imagine what somebody that can barely pay the electricity bill now would do if they put 50% tax on it or something like that, or even 20% tax? It wouldn't happen. I personally believe that what we will end up with, and this has been kind of touted before by the government, is a situation where you'll end up paying per mile, a toll road system almost. So if you do 10,000 miles a year and they charge X pence per mile, that's where the revenue will come from. That way it doesn't really matter what you drive. I guess you could argue it's a fairer system, because the current system is obviously trying to push people into cleaner vehicles, and that makes sense. But once everyone is in an electric vehicle and effectively there's not much difference between them, I think you need to change it. You need a fairer system. And as I said, I would say, although I'm not in favour of doing this personally, but especially as I do a lot of miles, but paying someone per mile to use the road, I think, as I said, it's a fairer system, because ultimately the more you use the road, the more it costs to maintain, the more you should be paying to use it, I suppose. It's like anything, isn't it? You know, the more you use it, the more you pay. That's personally what I see happening in the future in terms of getting revenue from the motorist. If someone does 500 miles a year, he'll barely pay anything at all, because he's barely using the roads. He might be using public transport, or she. Whereas if someone does 20,000 miles a year, lots of wear and tear on the roads, they will be paying a lot more. So as I said, it could be seen as a fairer system. I always remember speaking to someone who had a Ferrari, and he said, I only take it out some weekends. I think he was paying £400 or £500 or something like that in car tax. And he says, I do like 2,000 miles a year, if that. How can I be paying 500 quid a year, say, when someone who does 30,000 miles a year in a small diesel or even an electric vehicle, they're paying nothing or very little, and I'm paying 500 quid. I never touch the roads, or hardly touch the roads. So you can see where some people are coming from. A system like that would be fairer. How it's priced, that's the big question. I'm not saying I'm in favour of this, but I can see it working. I'm not sure how it'll be policed, whether it'll be some sort of tracking thing, or they'll just go off the mileage that's written down on your car. I don't know, but the technology is out there to be able to do this now, so I can't see it being a major thing. Maybe they'll just charge for using major roads, motorways and main A roads. It's hard to say. Again, it's something that I think a lot of people seem to think will happen, and that's that they will use the smart chargers that the government are making everyone install now, which are a good thing ultimately. Smart chargers are a very good thing. They're going to use smart chargers to determine whether or not you're fueling your car if you charge at home, and that's how it will be taxed. They will use these smart chargers, and whatever they use will be taxed. This, I get it, I can see why that would happen, but again, I don't think it will, because it's so easily circumvented. It's so easy to not use a car charger at home to charge your car that it can't feasibly happen. I mean, I can charge my car via a 3-pin plug. I could be using an electric fire or well, anything really. They will never know what it is. It's coming from a standard plug socket, it's fueling my car, and people will just do that rather than using the smart charger, which will be recorded and taxed. But if someone tells me that, right, if you use your proper charger, it's quicker obviously, so you might need to sometimes, but if you use that, you're going to be taxed X percentage on your electricity on top of your normal electricity price. Then I will just get my 3-pin plug out. That will just come off the normal house's electricity. Smart meters don't tell you where the electricity is being used. They just tell them how much electric has been used for the whole house. It's so easy to mask. I can't see any way that they'd be able to implement such a system and it'd be reliable. And they're not going to implement an unreliable tax system. If like trying to say, right, I'm only going to tax water on, like if you have a bath, you're going to get taxed on water usage for luxury items. If you're just having a drink though, you won't be taxed on that one. So the drink tap won't be taxed, the bath tap will be taxed. What would you do then? Well, you just use that tap to fill your bath up with a hose or something, wouldn't you? People, not everyone will do that, but you get my point. People will do something like that if it saves them certainly a lot of money. There's no way for any device to be installed in every single home that tells them, or anyone for that matter, where that electricity is going from that plug socket. But to go back to the original point that everybody keeps on making to me, electricity is going to skyrocket in price when everyone gets an electric vehicle. It won't happen. It might go up a little bit, but I can't see it being ever a thing. Electricity is like water in today's society. You can't tax it a lot. You can't make it so expensive because everything would just stop. People wouldn't be able to afford it. The industry would collapse. All the things I've already said before. So yeah, that's my take on it. So what do you think? Do you think I'm right here? Do you have another system that you think the government may go down? Are you in a different country where they've gone to a different system already? I can't personally think of one off the top of my head, but it's something that I'm sure people have been thinking about for a while, and I don't think the government are not aware of this. Now, let's face it, if everybody gets an electric vehicle all of a sudden, if you click your fingers and we all are in electric vehicles, we've still got as much congestion, you've still got as much traffic on the road. So the answer isn't to make every car electric. The answer is to get people out of cars. Obviously that means you need alternatives like public transport, which for me in North Yorkshire, as of, well, it's 7 o'clock right now, and there's a few buses left, but after that there's no public transport. I could not get anywhere in a few hours from now, and certainly not back again until maybe 6 in the morning. My wife works nights quite a lot, as a lot of you know. There is literally no public transport. I think it's a 38-mile round trip for her. No trains, no buses. For me, people who live in London are completely spoiled. They think that that's what everybody has. Not so much the tube, but when something isn't on, a night bus comes on, or well, they've cancelled the train, let's put a bus in its place. It doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. And I don't live in the sticks. There's 3 major towns within about 5 or 6 miles of me in 3 different directions. It just doesn't happen. You don't have it up here. I guess there's just not enough people to warrant it, I suppose. So, what do you think? If you get into power, how would you do this? I'm sure I'll have some fun comments on that one. Try and keep it kind of not political in any way. I'm not interested in red, blue, yellow in terms of political parties. Let's forget all that. Let's just see how would you do it if this was your country, a computer game. Take your pick. For me, if it's priced right, I can see the pence per mile thing being logical, being fair. It's a bit different. They have to treat electric vehicles different from petrol ones. Yes, they're cars, but the fuel is a very different animal. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please do use the comments. Please do subscribe. Again, that makes a big difference to any channel if you subscribe to them, because that's what sponsors and various other people who hand out cars like manufacturers look at. They look at subscriber numbers. And of course, don't forget the merch. Before it all goes, the merch. Seriously though, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.